All right, ready to dive deep. Today we're looking at Leviticus chapter 3, the fellowship offering, or as some call it, the peace offering.
Yeah.
We've got this great piece from my Christian space that breaks it down, and trust me, this is not just some dusty old rule from the Old Testament. It's actually, it's way more interesting than you might think.
Oh, it totally is. It's not just about, like keeping God happy. This offering was all about building peace between people. The ritual itself is fascinating.
Okay, so let's break it down. Someone brings an animal, a cow, a sheep, a goat, male or female, didn't really matter, but it had to be top-notch. No defects allowed.
Absolutely. The best of the best.
And then they lay their hands on the animal's head right before it's slaughtered. What's going on there?
It's such a powerful image, isn't it? It's like they're acknowledging this deep connection between themselves and the animal, almost like maybe transferring their own imperfections onto it.
Wow. Okay, so then what?
Then the priests, the sons of Aaron specifically, would splash the animal's blood on all sides of the altar, right there at the entrance to the tent of meeting. It was a pretty intense visual, very visceral, definitely got your attention.
Oh, yeah, I bet. So much symbolism packed into every single step.
Yeah.
And here's what I find interesting. This is different from a burnt offering where the whole animal went up in smoke.
You got it.
With the peace offering, some of it was burned, but not all of it.
Right, you're exactly right. Specific parts were burned, the kidneys, part of the liver, and all that fat around them.
Mm-hmm.
The source we're looking at, it kind of suggests these represent getting rid of waste, like a spiritual detox.
Oh, interesting. So like a symbolic cleaning. But wait, it's called a food offering.
Yeah.
Was God literally eating this stuff?
No, not literally. It's not like God was sitting down to a kidney and liver dinner.
Right.
It was more about the satisfaction we feel after a good meal.
Yeah.
Think about that feel.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
And you know what? This actually points us towards something even deeper, a truth that's revealed through Jesus.
Ooh, okay, now we're talking. Are you saying the offering itself foreshadows Jesus?
In a way, yes. The source suggests that only through Jesus can we truly get rid of the bad stuff, the waste in our lives. It's like that ultimate cleansing.
Wow, that's deep.
But there's more to it than just burning stuff on the altar. There was a shared meal involved, a kind of a ritual feast.
Wait a minute, a feast? Like everyone sat down and had a barbecue right there by the altar?
Well, maybe not a barbecue, but yeah. Both the priests and the person who brought the offering, they would eat the rest of the animal together. Can you imagine that sense of community?
That's amazing. So the act of eating together actually symbolized the peace that had been established. I never thought of it like that.
Exactly. You see, this offering wasn't just a transaction with God. It was a way to create harmony between people.
That makes so much sense.
And my Christian space piece, it emphasizes that this peace between people is only possible through Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they make a big point of saying that. They point out that the portion offered to God, the burnt offering, was the foundation for everything else. God's peace is built on that ultimate sacrifice. And that brings us back to this idea of offering the best, right? Absolutely. The source talks about how some sheep have these huge fat tails, and the fat was like the prime cut. What's the significance of that? Well, you have to remember, fat was a sign of a healthy, well-cared-for animal. Offering that fat tail was like saying, look, this is the absolute best I have, and I'm giving it to you. It was about genuine devotion. It wasn't just going through the motions.
Right, that makes sense. So we've got the sacrifice, the symbolism of purification, the shared meal, this emphasis on offering the very best. But how does this ancient ritual translate to our lives today? I mean, we're not exactly walking around with flocks of sheep offering up fat tails. What's the modern equivalent?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's a question that goes way beyond just, material possessions.
Yeah.
What are the fat tails in our lives?
Yeah.
Our talents, our time. What is it that we can offer to the Lord that's truly our best?
Ooh, that is a good question. It really makes you stop and think about what we're putting out there in the world. Are we giving the equivalent of a scrawny, neglected animal? Or are we bringing our best to the table?
Right. And there's another fascinating aspect of this offering. A rule that was in effect until the sacrifice of Jesus. But we'll have to get into that after the break. It's interesting. We were talking about those specific parts of the animal, the kidneys, the liver, the fat, those were all burned. Well, there were also some parts that were completely off limits. No one could eat them.
Really? Hold on, which parts? And why were they forbidden? It's like every little detail in this ritual has a deeper meaning.
You're totally right. Nothing was random here. The blood and the fat, those were specifically reserved for God. The source suggests They symbolize abundant life, the kind of life that you could only find in Him.
I see. So it's like those forbidden parts had a special kind of power. They represented something that was beyond human reach. It definitely ties into that idea of God being the source of all life.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that this rule, this prohibition against eating the blood and the fat, it was only in effect until the sacrifice of Jesus.
Whoa, okay. That's a big deal. It's like the ritual itself was pointing to a time when that separation wouldn't exist anymore, when humanity would be reconciled with God.
Precisely. The coming of Jesus changed everything. The source even quotes Leviticus, saying this ordinance was to remain in effect until the time of the sacrifice of Yeshua Messiah. It's a whole new covenant, a new way of understanding how we relate to God.
This is really making me think. It's incredible how these ancient rituals can hold such profound truths that still resonate with us today. But let's be real for a second. Most of us aren't exactly hanging out in attentive meetings, splashing blood on an altar. So how do we translate these ancient practices into something relevant for our lives today?
It's a great question. It challenges us to look beyond just the act of sacrifice and into what it all really means. Remember when we were discussing offering the best? It wasn't just about finding a lamb with the biggest, fattest tail. It was about what motivated that offering in the first place.
Right, that genuine desire to offer something meaningful, to show true devotion and respect. But what does that look like in our everyday lives? We don't exactly have flocks of sheep waiting around for us to, sacrifice.
No, we don't. But think about it this way. What are the fat tails in our lives? What are the things that we treasure most? The things we put our time and energy into? Maybe it's our talents or creativity. Maybe it's our compassion or our willingness to help others. These are our modern-day fat tails, the best that we have to offer.
I really like that. It's not about big gestures or expensive things. It's about putting our whole hearts into everything we do, big or small.
And think about the shared meal. It represented fellowship. How can we cultivate that same sense of peace and connection in our own lives? How can we reach out to others, share what we have, and build connections instead of walls?
That is a challenge, especially in today's world, but it's a challenge worth taking on. We need that sense of community more than ever, that shared experience of peace and connection. It's what makes us human.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that brings me to what I think is the most important point from this whole deep dive into the peace offering. It reminds us that true peace with God and peace with each other, it takes effort, it takes intention, and it takes a willingness to offer the very best of ourselves.
So as we're wrapping up here, I keep thinking about this question. What does it really mean to offer our best in our daily lives? Is it about those grand gestures? Or is it about those small acts of kindness, the connections we make, the choices that we make every day to bring a little more peace into the world?
Such good questions. And you know what? I think the answers are different for everyone. It's a journey we all have to take, a commitment to living out these principles of the peace offering in our own unique way.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for joining me and for taking us on this incredible journey through Leviticus. And to our listeners, thank you for being here. Until next time, keep searching, keep offering, and keep striving for that peace that's beyond anything we can understand.